Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to New Comic Book Late Night. I'm Captain Logan. With me, as always, is the wonderful Curious Lo.
Hello.
It has been a couple weeks since we've seen you on this show. Thanks a lot for being here live if you're here this evening. Lo and I were hanging out together last weekend in her place and going to Disneyland and going to Paramorphicon in California. So we weren't able to do our show last week because I was on an airplane up until midnight on Monday. So we're back. We're going to be talking about books from the last couple weeks. My top three are definitely from this last week, and there are a couple things from the previous week that I didn't get to. So I'll run down some of the stuff from even the previous week that I read, but I haven't read everything. And Lo informed me before the show that she has that her top three might be anything from the last 2 weeks.
I just don't remember what came out which week, and frankly, I've been so busy I haven't been bothered to look up what came out which week. So sorry, but
that's okay. No big deal. I consider doing it that way too. And my top three would have been different had I chosen things from the previous week. Also, it was a bigger week actually the week before last for me.
For me, it was a really small week the week before last. I think I only had like 3 or 4 books that came out the week that we skipped. So honestly, probably most of these are from this week. I just don't remember.
I also want to mention that because I got my books late this week, there was a major one that I was going to get that somehow or rather didn't land on my pull list, which is Rebirth Supergirl. So I will try to grab that and talk about it in the next week or two. And I will be reading the monthly when that starts, but I didn't get the one-shot. So anyway, so I'll talk about that soon. It sucks because Supergirl's like one of my favorite things, and I was excited to talk about that, but I didn't get it this week. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll count down our top 3 books from the last week or possibly the last 2 weeks, and then we'll do our cover of the week, and we'll let you know what books we are most excited for this. And then we'll do some open forum for the last 10 or 15 minutes at the end. Lo, why don't you start us out this week? What is your number 3 for this week? Favorite comics from the Curious Lo.
All right, my number 3 is Poe Dameron number 5, which again, I have no idea which week this came out, but this continues the adventures of Poe Dameron, where he's trying to find something in a prison and escape, whatever. There's a really cool subplot line where BB-8 is leading a bunch of droids to break them out of prison, and I think that's fantastic. Like, the main plot line is fun, but BB-8 and all of his little droid friends took out some guards, and it was super intense, and there was no wording. I mean, there was like beep boop type stuff, but you know, that's mostly just there for silliness. Like, I was just really impressed with the fact that it was like characters that don't speak English. And I was like all about like what they were in. I was like I understood their plan and like what was happening. I don't know. I thought it was super fun. Obviously the stuff with Poe is also very interesting, and finding out that the First Order is also in this prison trying to track down the information that they're looking for. But I enjoyed that, as I have been with this book. I was just surprised by the little BB-8 subplot that I found very kind of like, here it comes, adorable and amusing. So that was my number 3. What about you, Cap?
Well, somehow or rather, that didn't get in my stack. I didn't even realize that had come out already, so I'll have to make sure and grab that. Is that not on my pull list? Have I been just picking that up off the shelf? I don't even know. I like to call what you're describing with the bleeps and the bloops, being able to figure out what BB-8 was doing in that, the I Am Groot effect. That's a thing that we've been seeing more and more with characters that don't speak English and only have 1 or 2 or 3 words they say. Obviously, it comes up all the time in Guardians, but there's a couple other things here and there where that's become really popular lately, and it's a really cool use of the form because comics are, of course, a visual medium, and that's a thing that you can do there that you can't do every place else. My number 3 this week, Lo, is Back to the Future number 11. I think this is maybe the second time this has made my top 3, or maybe the first, I'm not sure. This book has been kind of hit or miss for me, and I really enjoyed the way this story arc ended. We've got I feel like I talked about this last time too, that this came out. But we've got Doc Brown and Marty and Jennifer all in the year 2035. That's where they've been the last couple issues. And we discover toward the end of this that it's an earlier version of Doc Brown. We thought it was the same Doc Brown who shows up at the end of Back to the Future 3 with the train, but it turns out, not to give too many spoilers away, but it turns out that it's actually the Doc Brown that is going to eventually build that train. And I was really excited to find out just how much of this is actually building toward things that happen in a couple of places in the movies, and that it's a lot more relevant to that stuff than I would have expected. But so it ends up being more fill-in territory, but not in a bad way. Like, this would have made for a pretty decent Back to the Future 4 if rewritten, because there's some I have some dialogue issues with this here and there. I feel like early on in this arc, Marty and Jennifer border on unsympathetic in the way they talk to each other, and their dialogue is more juvenile than it needs to be. There's also still more references and callbacks in dialogue to specific lines from the movies that are sometimes amusing and clever, and sometimes feel a little bit groany to me. But the coolest thing, besides setting up some things that happen in those movies, in this is the artwork and the action. It's a really fun, action-packed adventure. It feels again like it's actually, worth going back to this world. We get to do some real-time travel, and we're dealing with a Griff in this, and doing a lot of the kind of Back to the Future formula stuff in as fresh and new of a way as possible. What I'm wondering moving forward is where exactly we go from here. Marty has a really great character arc where he learns how to be about responsibility over just adventure, and he goes through another giant bombastic adventure, which is arguably even more dangerous and rip-roaring than the things that he's gone through before. And when he gets to the end of this, he starts to kind of appreciate the adventure of the life that he leads already. And I just don't know where you go from there without just repeating yourself. And I hope this doesn't start to look like, Back to the Future, the animated series, and just we do the same thing every arc. So I'm interested to see where this goes and if we can do anything else with it. But this arc I was pretty impressed with, especially now that I have it all. I thought that was pretty cool. Lo, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is going to be Spider-Woman number 10. I really, really liked where this is going. It feels like for the first time we've broken out of dealing with the aftermath of the crossover, and we're really back into just Spider-Woman having her own plot with what she's doing. This was mostly like a series of vignettes at the beginning where she was tracking down a few different leads and just kind of confirming them. So just a couple little quick things, more just kind of really getting back into her plot and kind of back into her own world type of a thing. At the end, there was a little bit of a revelation, at least for this character. I haven't really been keeping track of Civil War II. It doesn't interest me that much, so I've just been catching glimpses of it when it shows up in the books that I'm already following. But it was a revelation to me, so I'm not sure how much of a spoiler it is. But a character has been killed. Again, I've not been keeping track of Civil War II at all. And just to see her reaction to it and how she dealt with it and how it seems like that's going to be a lot of what's happening with her arc going forward is very interesting. And I like that even if this was something, and I'm sure it has been revealed in other books, that me as somebody who's only reading a few books that are actually touching on Civil War II was able to be like, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy, and I'm like invested in it, even if I didn't know exactly why it happened or how it happened. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this book, but I'm me, and I'm loving all of the various spider peoples in their various spider books.
Spider books.
Exactly.
People spider books have.
What about you?
What about me? My number 2 is All-Star Batman number 1, which is probably not going to be a surprise to anybody. This is Scott Snyder with artwork from John Romita Jr. just tearing it up in this. And Romita, as I've said before, is not my favorite artist. I feel like he's he has a style that's all his own, and his art pretty much always looks a particular way. And it works really well with a book like this that's about a small amount of characters doing a lot of as opposed to a bunch of people standing in a room together. And I was first to modern John Romita, reading him writing, drawing stuff a few years ago when I first got back into current. The first thing I was looking at with him was in Avengers, and I was like, oh, I don't like this artwork at all. And I just had to see it in the right books. I really liked him on Superman. It's still surreal to me to see him drawing DC stuff and not Marvel stuff. And anyway, I think he's tearing it up in this. I was halfway through this. I was not sure that I was digging it, and by the end, it really got me. We have another. Like, I really want to. I still say this. I really want to see Scott Snyder do a more intimate, smaller scale Batman story at some point, because it just seems like everything he does is really big and grand. But the villain plot in this is so interesting that I'm not minding it again, just as long as it doesn't end in a giant mech robot fight. That's all I'm asking for. Two-Face is the main villain for this, and his whole plot is to try to entice people to show the worst sides of themselves in taking down Batman. And so he's offering a ginormous prize for anybody that helps him to take down Batman, and it's making people come out of the woodwork who usually seem to be kind of regular okay people, and showing the dark, horrible sides of themselves. And this is and there's a lot of different takes on Two-Face. This is the Two-Face that sees the scarred side of his face as revealing who he really is, and he's trying to bring that side out with everybody else. And there is a big revelation at the end of this that was stunning and surprising and really took me aback, and I can't wait to find out why that's happening, because without giving too much away, somebody that we know is one of the people that Two-Face is bringing his worst side out of, and that was kind of an astounding revelation and a wonderful way to keep people reading. This is a formulaic thing with superhero comics where you get the last page, you get the last page and you turn it, and oh my goodness, it's either a character you didn't expect to show up, or some weird crazy twist that you want that doesn't even seem to make sense, that will explain next issue, and we might have to get really convoluted to even explain what it is. It might not be as great when we find out what it really is as it seemed to be when we looked at it on the page, but at least right now that is absolutely fascinating. And I can't, and so he's got me hooked with that. A couple of complaints though. Snyder really needs to learn how to not open every story. I don't know if he does it every issue, but every story with the future in Midas Rest thing. And I know I complain about this all the time, but I feel like Snyder has kind of wrapped himself up in this cocoon where he has to always have that, and that's like I don't know that it's warranted here really. We have some nonlinear storytelling which is working okay. I just don't know that we have to start everything that way. We have a backup feature in this that's 6 pages that also does it. That just you're in Midas Rest, you're in the moment, and then. And do we have to do that every time? Can't you open with something exciting and just move forward? But I do think it's kind of clever that every time we jump to a different time period in this with the nonlinear storytelling, it's always a time that has the number 2 in it. So it's like 20 hours earlier, 2 days earlier, 2 weeks earlier, and it's Two-Face, so it's always got to have the number 2 in it. I also will complain about a visual format thing with this that I find irritating, which is Scott Snyder always likes to have a backup feature in the back of his comics, which beef them up and give you more bang for your buck, and I often like those. That's a tradition with him. He was doing that back in Detective with Black Mirror, and or actually before that. And so you had the Gordon stuff in the back of that suddenly took over and became the main story, which I always thought was really cool. But the problem with it here is that I didn't realize that we had finished the story. So even though when you get to the bottom of this, it looks like we're it calls back to the beginning. So it does feel like it's done, but then we just jump to the next page. This should have been an ad or something so that it didn't feel like we went straight from this to this. That was kind of irritating, but that's a minor complaint. Anyway, this is wonderful. And if you're not reading any other Batman stuff right now and you liked Snyder and you weren't sure if you wanted to keep going with it, this has hooked me in a way that his last couple arcs didn't right away. Snyder had kind of a thing with his last couple arcs for me where as they went along, I started to like them more. This one got me right away. So, Lo, what is your number 2?
I already did my number 2. This is my number 1.
Oh, excuse me, you're number 1. You're right. We are in number 1. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
All right.
No, I want to talk about the Spider-Woman again.
I will. I can. Maybe I'll someday get as like in depth as you possibly can. I'm always just like, I don't know. There was fun stuff and droids beeped. It was great. Moving on. So of course, Gwenpool number 1. Thought it was great. The team up between her and Miles Morales. Just
number 5.
Oh, what did I call it?
You said number 1, I think.
Oh, number 5 is what I meant.
Yeah,
the team up between her and Miles Morales was fantastic. I was so excited for that. I wasn't like paying attention to the cover even. Like, I was just like, okay, Gwenpool, here we go. Like, not the first time that there would be like random characters on a cover. Like, I just didn't read anything into it. And it made me really happy that it's definitely not the first time that she's been able to kind of like immediately get in with a character because she knows all of their backstories and stuff. But I don't know, there was something different about this one, and it feels like it has some weight going forward. Like there might be a little bit of a team up arc going on here. Again, I don't really like to look forward to what is going to be happening in the next issues because I like to be surprised, because I think I wouldn't have liked this as much if I was like, oh yeah, this is the team up issue. So I was very surprised by that. I loved it. I'm still loving everything with Gwenpool. I talk it to death every single time, so I don't need to talk it to death to this time. What was your number 1?
It's been that good every time. My number 1 is not that, but I do want to mention a couple things about it since we're there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So I loved Miles's line about how Spider-Men have bad luck with Gwens, and that we addressed the fact that she's not a Gwen Stacy, and that you can have other characters named Gwen that don't have Stacy at the end of their names. And I like that we're calling attention to that, because obviously her name is Gwenpool because Gwen Stacy titles have been selling really well and Deadpool titles have been selling really well. So we put those two things together, and it has turned out to be less gimmicky than you would think. But it is a wonderful book that has a really, really gimmicky title and premise to get us to the. So the fact that a lot of people were turned off to it before they ever looked at it makes total sense to me. I just feel the need to keep reiterating that no, it really is that good. They sold us on a gimmick, and then they made a really good book.
And I will be the first to admit that I am the type of person that like will totally be on board with gimmicks. Like I'm the type of person that will love a good like ad campaign and just buy into it and be like, yes, let's do this. And that was exactly what happened with Gwenpool. I was like, yes, Gwen, I love Gwen Stacy, I love Spider-Gwen, like, and then Deadpool, I'm a big Deadpool fan, granted, recent Deadpool fan, but still I quite enjoy Deadpool stuff. I was like, yeah, this seems like two things that I really love being smashed together. Let's do this. And just like you, I was expecting it to just be kind of like silly, happy, fun times, and like maybe it's kind of okay, but it's Gwenpool, like let's do it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm always impressed by how good it is, probably because of that. Probably because I keep expecting it to just be like silly, happy, fun times. And
it should be a throwaway comic, and it's just not.
Yeah.
The other thing that I love, this has probably my favorite line in the whole run so far, Lo, when somebody, I think it's Batrock the Leaper, says something about how impressive it was that Gwen was able to defeat MODOK and send him to the moon. And she says, well, I'm pretty sure it's just that my comic got renewed and I can't die yet. I love that. That's hilarious. Okay, so my number 1 is Batman number 5. Wow, is this super tragic and sad, and has a wonderfully surprising and engaging ending. First of all, I should mention that it bookends incredibly well, this arc. Again, without giving too much away, the way that Gotham saves Batman at the beginning has a lot to do with the way Batman defeats Gotham Gotham in this, and that's great. I bet this reads so much better altogether. Gotham is, like I said, this really tragic character. He's got his heart in the right place. It's very much a road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of story. When you finally find out how he and Gotham Girl got their powers, it is incredibly creative and not something I think I've ever really seen before. And when you find out the kinds of sacrifices that they've made in order to try to save their city, and then what Gotham has turned into, it just gets you in a place. This is dictionary definition of a sympathetic antagonist. And of course, we don't know he's an antagonist at the beginning, and he still plays as a tragic protagonist as opposed to an antagonist in a way by the time we get to the end. But Batman certainly isn't like thrown to the wolves as far as getting a character arc. It's still very much about who he is and his relationship with Gotham, the city, and about mistakes he's made and how much. And this is classic Batman, especially classic modern Batman. How much he can be blamed or should not be blamed for bad things that have happened in Gotham. King is writing the freshest Batman I've probably read in half a decade at least, and I'm so in love with this and really excited moving forward, because I kind of thought that these characters would kind of just get this arc and then King would jump onto a new arc and it wouldn't be related, and then we would kind of do the Snyder thing where it's just a big arc and then have kind of a loose tie-in to connect them up, but this is very much setting up things to come and turns out to be kind of an origin story for somebody. And like I said, really fresh Batman. I'm super stoked about where that's going. Let's go ahead now and go into some other books that we read for this last couple of weeks, Lo. And why don't you tell us about a few other things that you read?
Okay, we had Scooby Apocalypse number 4. Continues to be darker than I expect. Even though I know that it is a dark book now, I'm always just like, oh yeah, it's Scooby-Doo. And then I start reading and I'm like, oh, there's like people getting like shot and stuff. Like it's definitely a more adult Scooby-Doo, but it's very fun. They've made it out and are about in the, I don't want to call it countryside, the wasteland that is outside the lab that they were hiding at. Scooby-Doo has some like other like genetically enhanced dogs coming after him, which is new because we haven't really heard any of that before. So that was kind of a cool revelation. So I was very enjoying that one. Harley Quinn number 2. And again, I know everybody last time was like, whoa, why did you like Harley Quinn number 1? I don't know, because I liked it. You don't have to like it. I liked it. There were zombies and they came from hot dogs. I liked it. And this continued that same plot line. Zombies and Harley Quinn. I don't know. It's what I like. Shut up. And Black Road number, what is this? 5. Black Road number 5. I'm still really liking this book. I really, really think this is not a book for everybody. I'm just pushing through. This is not a book for everybody. It's very slow. It's very like depressing. But I really like it. I feel like this book is not something that everybody's going to like, but is almost tailor-made for me. So maybe not for everybody, but I'm quite enjoying it. And the last one I wanted to mention is Spider-Man Deadpool number 8. I just love all the shenanigans that these two get up to. And with the aftermath of what Deadpool did to Peter Parker, kind of shaking their relationship and their dynamic, it's been interesting to see over the last, like, I think maybe issue or two since that happened. Has been very fun. What about you, Cap?
Man, just Lowe's not here to make anybody happy, man. He's like, here's what I like. Leave me alone. Meh.
I'll still get people that are like, how could you possibly like that book? I don't know, because I like it. That's why.
I gotta mention that with Spider-Man and Deadpool, and I read an issue of that a couple weeks ago because of the superhero movie thing and thought it was great. I didn't realize, I don't know if you just got on it or what, because I haven't looked into it. I didn't realize Joe Kelly was writing that book. Oh, okay. I guess I might jump onto it now. Joe Kelly wrote the classic Deadpool stuff, Lo, and that's if I have a Deadpool, because he's not my favorite character or anything, but my Deadpool is Joe Kelly's Deadpool, and it's really cool to see him back on that character. it's kind of like seeing anybody that did like the classic run of a character come back to it again, or a seminal run. It's like anytime Claremont comes back and tries to and does more X-Men. Okay, I will run through some things real quick.
You don't have to be as quick as I was.
No, but Green Lantern's number 5. It was just okay. Shut up.
I just want to let everybody in the audience know I really, really do love you guys. That wasn't me telling any one of you to personally shut up. I was being silly. It was sort of a character. I love you all. Don't think that I was like, hey, people in the comments, you're dumb. That wasn't what I was doing. It was an act.
No.
You're
just owning your opinion.
Exactly.
In a both sarcastic and respectful way, if such a thing is even possible. So as I keep saying, I'm reading this because Red Lanterns are in it. It's not great. I think it has the potential to keep getting better. This is going to be my review of a lot of DC books this week, so I'll start it here, and then I'll just keep, putting like the quotation marks under it, like a list where you just keep saying the same thing over and over again. This is just taking too long to get anywhere, and I feel like that with a lot of things that are double shipping with DC right now. But I don't know, if you dig Red Lanterns, it might be worth looking at. And I think that our 2 new Green Lanterns are gradually growing on me and kind of finding themselves and trying to hold their own. And so now at this point, when they're both having a really difficult time not giving into rage and giving into fear and stuff, I'm suddenly caring about that in a way I didn't before. So we're making progress. Superman number 5. Once again, same review. It's just taking us too long to get anywhere. We've still got this big fight between Superman and Eradicator. One thing I gotta say though is that the DC books have suddenly gotten so much more creative than they were in the last few years. This opens with Superman taking Eradicator, who again has a lot of dead Kryptonians inside of him, and that's fueling his power, which is really interesting in and of itself. But he takes him to the moon. And this is at the beginning of the issue, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling too much. But this might be the reason to read this. He takes Eradicator to the moon, and he brings Lois and his son there, Jonathan. And so it's kind of fun just to see Jonathan's like wide-eyed enthusiasm about getting to see the moon. And he seems to really like the history of NASA and stuff. So we're getting some real personal stuff about that character now, finally. And they go to a bat cave that Bruce Wayne has built on the moon. Of course Batman has a bat cave on the moon. That's fantastic. But I kind of expected that we would be done with that fight by the end of this. Nope. We're still kind of in the middle of that fight by the end of this. Powerpuff Girls number 2. The Powerpuff Girls turned into chickens because of a supervillain who really wants to open his own chicken restaurant and needs to turn the city's people into the citizens of Townsville into chickens in order to give him eggs for his omelet restaurant. It's pretty funny. I'm liking the way this book is kind of crossing the moods and the sentiments of both the original Powerpuff Girls series and the current one. I think it's doing a really good job of striking a balance there. So once again, I should say, if you're not digging the new show but you like the original Powerpuff Girls show, there's stuff here for you, certainly. And man, I just wish that Derek Charm, who's back and doing the art for Powerpuff Girls again, was working on that show because he's got such great panel layouts and obviously TV shows don't have panel layouts, but he would be a really good storyboarder for that show. And what he's creating is really dynamic. Wonder Woman number 4. This continues the origin of Wonder Woman, and it's kind of just Wonder Woman's origin again. I think Ruck is putting his own spin on it a little bit, but it's very much the classic Wonder Woman origin as far as I understand it. And I'm glad I'm reading it because that's the thing I need a refresher on sometimes, because she's not my most favorite character. And if you've never really looked at the origin of Wonder Woman, this is a good way to get it because it's incredibly well written and the art's quite good. Laura, are you still on Daredevil?
Yeah. Oh no,
right, cool.
no, I dropped Daredevil. That's right.
Okay.
I dropped it after the first arc, I think.
It has, I think, gotten a lot better.
Okay, maybe I'll pick back up.
Ever since Ten Fingers, I think it's really on its way now. And I like things about Ten Fingers, but I understand why people were not liking that. His dynamic with Blind Spot continues to be really solid and really interesting. I like how in over his head Blind Spot is, and it looks like he might be developing his own arch nemesis now, maybe. There is somebody who has left him a note that brought him to a trap, and specifically Blind Spot, so people now know that this is a hero that's around, and he's starting to have to deal with some of that classic superhero stuff of you become vulnerable, not just when people know your secret identity, but even when they just know you exist. And I also just really love the art and atmosphere in this book. Action 961. We're still not getting enough done in this book. We finally kind of find out who the silhouette person or people is behind the big computer monitors that we thought were behind everything. There's a little bit of a twist with that I guess is sort of interesting, and this ties into Superwoman, and it looks like maybe we're going to have a solid explanation as to why so many of these characters are all coming together at the same time, and maybe that won't seem like the giant convenience that it has seemed like. But it's pretty much is still continuing that giant slugfest with Superman and Doomsday. 5 issues. I'm really ready to get past this Doomsday fight, even though I love Doomsday. Art's good. Old Man Logan, number 10, continues to be what this book has been all along. It's incredibly violent. Wolverine is constantly going through the ringer, and he's dealing with people of his previous life in the other universe before they become those people, and that is interesting, if not starting to feel a little bit formulaic. It's also kind of fun. I should mention that this being Lemire and Sorrentino, that we get a 2-page spread where Wolverine constantly gets shot by arrows because they used to do the Green Arrow book together and that big run that everybody loved, and it was kind of fun to get to see Sorrentino drawing arrows in that same way, all hitting Wolverine constantly. He gets impaled a lot, Lo. There's a lot of Wolverine getting impaled in that book.
He can take it.
He can take it. Superwoman number 1 is such an interesting first issue. I really liked this. I will say that the pages are a little gummed up. I think it feels kind of disorganized and there's a little bit too much on a page. I think it's somewhat overwritten. I will complain about that, but it's hard to talk about this without giving anything away, so all I'll say is this is not at all what we were led to believe it was going to be, and it's really an interesting reveal at the end when we find out what this book is actually going to be. All I'll say is, very early on, we find out that you have a Lois and a Lana that both have superpowers, and it looks like this book really ought to be called Superwomen. And then by the end, there's a really good reason that that's not the case, and oh boy, it's great. Okay, I have to talk about this. Lo, permit me for a minute. I must do my rant on this book.
Please, rant away.
Spawn kills everyone! Yeah, okay, so at first glance, this looks like it would be a lot of fun and be absolutely hysterical. The problem is that it is written by Todd McFarlane, and the thing is, McFarlane writing comedy is a lot like McFarlane writing drama. He just hasn't read enough and doesn't feel like he really knows what he's doing. This is so generic, and I hate that because the art is fantastic and it's really funny looking. I'm trying to find a page that's not so gross that I can show it on camera here on the channel, because it does get, really bloody and intentionally gross and disturbing. But I don't know. Here's a 2-page spread where he's fighting the Hulk and he's fighting Deadpool. Interesting that he can get away with using these characters just outright like this, and calling them by name when way back in the day when he did Spawn number 10, he had to put everybody in silhouette and only show their arms and stuff. So it's interesting what we can get away with these days that we didn't used to be able to. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, or if he was just being careful at that time and maybe kind of could have done that. Boy, so many of the jokes in this are just really lame. So the idea is that this kind of chibi-looking Spawn, I do like, by the way, that his head is giant because he has a huge ego. He talks about that like his head didn't used to be this big, but if you get enough of an ego, you get this big giant head. And he's going to a convention to announce his new movie. And one of the things that's weird about this is that McFarlane isn't lampooning or talking enough about real things that are actually going on, even though he's setting this sort of kind of in what looks like the real world. So it's just confusing, and I don't really know where I stand with it or what exactly he's making fun of. Like, is he making fun of the fact that his movie has taken as long as it has to get written and that we don't know if it's ever going to finally come out? He doesn't talk about any of that stuff, and you kind of wish that he would, because it is self-parody. He's making fun of himself to the point where I don't think anybody will mind me ruining this, but Todd McFarlane himself gets murdered at the end of this, with Spawn talking about how bad of a writer he is. And I should find that wonderfully funny and cathartic with Todd McFarlane writing this book. Maybe he's finally getting it, that he's just not as good of a writer as he is an artist. But the problem is it's so generic. I don't know if he's really saying that he's a bad writer, or if it's just this generic, look at me, isn't it funny to have your own self get killed in a comic book. The premise of it's really confusing. He is Spawn, but Todd McFarlane created him. But there's all these other characters that are there that are just people in costume that Spawn assumes are the real people, but the real actual characters, but he's murdering people in costumes that are just cosplaying. So I don't know how this guy came to be or anything. It's really confusing. Like I said, he has some lame jokes, like there's a part where he goes up against a cosplayer who's dressed up as Yoda, and he says, oh, hey, I've never murdered a car before. And then Yoda's like, what? And then he says, because you're a toy Yoda. And I'm like, it's not funny. And it's like, it's a wah, and too much of it is like that. If you're going for a percentage and a lot of it is really funny, I can forgive a thing like that. But yeah, it's rough, and there's been so many of these kind of parody things, especially set in conventions, that it feels like he's just writing a knockoff of one of those, and I don't know what he was doing with this. New Superman #2, everybody should be reading this. It's really good. I don't really want to take any more time to talk too much about more books because we're going to run out of time, and I want to do open forum, but but I like the dynamic that this new Superman has with this Justice League. I should mention, by the way, that Batman, that the China Batman is named Baxi, spelled B-A-I-X-I. It's almost Baxi, and it's Batman, and I think that's fantastic. That's really funny to me. But anyway, yeah, this is wonderful. This guy trying. It's funny and sad at the same time because he's obviously going on a character arc where he's going to discover how to be responsible and use his powers for the right reasons, but he's also being controlled and manipulated by the government. And all of that commentary is really interesting. Lo, do you have a favorite cover for the last 2 weeks?
I do. It's going to be Spider-Woman 10. I don't know. I really liked the coloring of it. And like their costumes are already so similar in color that really all they had to do was tweak her black hair to be blue. And that kind of evened out the coloring there. And I don't know, I like the way it looks. It doesn't really have much to do with what's happening in the actual comic. But it looks really cool. So, and that's what a cover does, is look cool on the front of a comic. And there you are. That's why I'll pick the cover to this, because it should have been awesome based on cover alone. But also, my runner-up is Superwoman #1 for the simple fact that this is misleading in the best way humanly possible.
Okay, Lo, it's now time to reveal our anticipated books. And as I seem to ask you every week, have you noticed anybody mentioning anything yet?
I haven't, and I have to be honest, I was paying more attention to you than I was to the chat tonight, so I haven't noticed anybody. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Lo, how dare you pay attention?
You know, right?
Really?
You don't think I got enough of you when you were here all last weekend?
Oh man, I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
No, I didn't see anything, and I don't see anybody, and I think we must have caught up to have people start guessing things by now. That if we stall just a tad bit longer, maybe somebody will guess something.
Maybe somebody will. So, folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, feel free to guess a book that you know.
I have one person. I have one person who has
guessed. Did Squirrel Girl make it on your list?
Yeah. I only have 3 books next week.
You guys should. Oh, okay, that'll be a short week then. It looked like a short week for a small week for me too. Everybody, when you guess things, like, feel free to have like more confidence in your guess. You know, you don't have to put like a question mark at the end of your guess. You know, like
I have to point out that Green Arrow in the chat. Green Arrow in the chat just guessed Paper Town. That made me really happy because I know that he means Paper Girls, but that just made me really happy.
I just want to mix like 5 things together, like clouds.
Like somebody, it was all Green Arrow. That's not the person who first did Squirrel Girl, but Green Arrow went Squirrel Girl, Silk, Paper Town, or Paper Girls, and it just made me really happy because those are all things that are like always on my top 3. So you guys are learning.
Good job. Is Paper Town a thing?
No, I think he just misguessed Paper Girls.
I wanted that to also be a thing. I hope there's a sequel to Paper Girls where they just create their own community someplace, and it's called Paper Town, where everyone that lives there has the same job, and they all just deliver newspapers.
It's like The Office. Paper Town. I don't know.
Paper Office.
Yeah.
Lo, what are your 3 most anticipated books for this coming week?
Okay, my number 3 is Unbeatable Squirrel Girl number 11, which I've lost it now. It's gone too high up. Stepper of the Long Earth guessed first. At least that's who I saw. So
good job, Stepper of the Long Earth.
Yeah.
Make sure you on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll be sure to send you a code for one of my Marvel books from this last week. I'll give you a choice.
And then I had number 2 was Deadpool number 17, and number 1 was Wonder Woman number 5.
My top 3 most anticipated for next week: Ghostbusters International number 8, because that was a heck of a cliffhanger last issue. Wonder Woman number 5, because I'm way more interested in the Lies story arc than I am the Year One story arc, although that's good too. But Lo, I was just blown away by that art last issue, and I can't get me enough of Cheetah, so really excited about that. And
we're back to that plot line, so
yes. And the thing I'm most interested in from next week, I will try this book out, is Duck Avenger from IDW. This is IDW bringing back the Disney Ducks, Donald and Scrooge and all those characters, and we haven't had this for a long time, or if we have, I don't know about it. I read some of DuckTales and Darkwing Duck back when those were being published by Boom, and I think it was Boom. Or Kaboom, or is that the same studio? I don't even know. But those were really good, and it's exciting to see that come back. And that looked like a neat premise. So I will read and review that for next time. And now we move on to the open forum for the next 15 minutes. Lo and I are going to talk to you folks about whatever you'd like to mention within reason. Please leave some questions and comments in the chat about comics, superheroes, the channel, anything you'd like to hear us talk about. And just remember that if you waste your best question for the multi-topic extravaganza here, you won't get to ask it there. People are taking this time to ask Dan Torrey questions because he is in the chat, but not here. Hi, Dan. How you doing, buddy? Divid22, Captain Logan, how's your Spawn collection currently? It's good. It's not underwater. I haven't slashed it with knives or anything. No, it is nearly complete. There are a couple of minor series that I never bothered with that I was going to read and review during Spawn year, and obviously you only had 365 slots, so I still don't have Hellspawn. But that and like one or two other things are the only things I'm missing. I've got pretty much everything. And yeah, it's nuts. I keep buying bad comics just for the sake of completion. But it's a cool collection. It's fun to look at the covers. I'm gonna try really hard never to actually go back and read them again. But I might turn into a masochist again. Hopefully not.
Ultron 32 wants to know if we will ever do a discussion on Stranger Things. I would love to, but nobody else has watched it yet.
That should happen. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I'm hearing great things. It sounds like it would appeal to me for many of the same reasons Paper Girls does. It's another 80s throwback to 80s horror and thriller movies. So with obviously a lot of science fiction concepts. So I've got to watch that. Eric says it's pretty good. So
it's like Stand By Me. Oh, I didn't know Eric has finally watched it. Yay, that's awesome.
He's watched 2 episodes. He says he likes it. He doesn't know why people have fallen in love with it, but he hasn't finished it yet. So
it's like The Goonies meets Stand By Me meets E.T. meets like Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, so it's like all of that like 80s nostalgia, classic like kids on an adventure sort of thing with like lots of horror, but not like so violent. I don't know. It's hard to describe. Just watch it. It's great. I think you'll really like it.
Yeah, one of the things Eric said that I thought was really interesting is he said if that had come out in the 80s, it would have probably been a thing that families actually watched together like they did E.T., but because of our modern sensibilities, it's considered more of an adult thing. And I haven't watched it, so I don't know if he's right about that. But I thought that was a really interesting thing to say.
It eases you in a lot. Like, the first couple episodes aren't as scary or, like, horror-centric. And the kids are all great. Like, the one kid, Dustin, is, like, my favorite character ever. Oh, he's amazing. But yeah, they ease you into it. It gets scarier as it goes and more kind of like sci-fi horror as it goes, because it has a little bit more mystery at the beginning, so you kind of don't really get into what's going on behind the scenes until maybe like episode 3 or 4.
Yeah,
yes.
Of course.
Connor just asked if Stranger Things has Twin Peaks DNA. At least I think that's any Twin Peaks DNA. It definitely is a lot like Twin Peaks. If you like Twin Peaks, Stranger Things is a good one.
Bobby Singer asks, or says, Cap, I spoke to James Tinney IV at a con. Oh, cool, good for you. And he said that Cassandra Cain is going to play a major role in an upcoming arc of Detective Comics. What are you hoping for from that? I don't know. I'm liking her so far. I didn't read most of. I read only the first couple issues of Batman and Robin Eternal, where she was introduced. So I don't have a great handle on this new version of her yet. So I can't really answer that until I've read some more of it. I like that she has a vigilante handle now, Orphan. I think that suits her well, and I like her costume. And she seems to have all the characteristics that I liked about that character in the first place. What else are we seeing? Oh, Soundwave. No, I've not read the new ROM book yet. I've got to get my hands on that. Stepper of the Long Earth, what are your thoughts on Animorphs? For some reason, Animorphs pops up every now and again in videos, and then people get intrigued because they didn't know that I was a fan of that. I am going to eventually finally sit down and do some reviews of those books. I get requests for it all the time. It's a thing that, so back when it was coming out, and I was a teenager, so it was aimed directly at my age group, I loved the stuff that Applegate wrote, and then when she was just ghostwriting it, went downhill real quick. Very few of the ghostwritten books, I think, are very good, and by the time she gets back on it, of course, the quality kind of ups again. But those in fact, come to think of it, I think even the last few books were still ghostwritten until 54, and by the time we get to 54, I was just kind of used to it not being very good. And then going back and reading it now, of course, it's not as good as I remember it as far as the prose goes. But it was kind of ahead of its time with some science fiction ideas in what it was doing with that stuff for that age group. honestly, that's the thing I wouldn't mind seeing rebooted, even in written form. I think somebody could come back in and take the skeleton of that series and write something a little bit more sophisticated. Because Teen Lit is more sophisticated now, too, for the most part, than it was at the time. Lo, do you see anything interesting?
Let's see here. Matt was asking something. I saw him ask it twice. Are you excited? Are you excited for Sonic Mega Drive Next Level?
Yeah, I think I talked about that last time, but I like that I like that one shot quite a bit. I don't really know why we got a one shot and then now there's a monthly. I don't know why that wasn't just the beginning of that, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, I love classic Sonic stuff and that throwback stuff. And I don't have that in front of me, and it's been a couple weeks, so I don't have anything specific or interesting to say about it, but I certainly enjoyed it a lot. No, I don't have any predictions for the final issue of Vader because I'm still behind on that book. I will try to catch up before the last issue goes. We just got 24 this week or last week, and I wasn't able to read that. I haven't read Detective from last time yet. I haven't read... There's a couple things. I'm sorry.
I can't remember. Did you not announce what movie you're doing next? Oh, no. What are you doing for Sci-Fi? Do you know? For Sci-Fi Rewind?
Do I want to announce it yet? Because I don't know.
I don't know. Somebody asked. Neil Cole asked. So
I'm just trying to decide if I want to announce it yet. Because I don't know how long it's going to take me to finally get to it. Because I've got a crypto.
And then everybody will be like, "Where's the rewind, Cap? Where's the rewind?"
And I'm really busy right now, guys. And there's stuff I can't talk about that's going on right now. That's making it difficult for me to sit down and write stuff. But I've got Crypto Freaks to do that I'm going to try to work on in the next couple days, and I have a super secret the Superhero Rewind project to do. And then I'll probably try to do Science Fiction Rewind after that. I will give hints. It's an 80s movie, and it was... This might be too much of a hint. It's an 80s movie, and it was sold as a children's film. That's what I'll give you. Yes, I have seen the Animorphs TV series, and I'll eventually do a rewind on that, or at least I'm planning on it. Where's the fast forward of what? Yeah, I did that. I did that joke with Batman versus Superman, and then people sent me messages and were like, "Wow, the one you saw in the future was better than the one we actually got. How dare you? You ruined everything." But I want to do one of those again at some point because that was fun. It is not Gremlins
or E.T.
It's not E.T.
See, but now you can't do that because somebody's gonna guess it, and then you'll have to just ignore it super sketchily and be like, "Oh, I didn't see that one."
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Wow, I did not name every '80s movie.
Cole, I would love to do musical rewinds. It does not fit with Geekvolution, so maybe I would do it on my own channel. That would never work here. Although I appreciate your appreciation of my obsession with Broadway.
Okay, people are naming a lot of other things. I'm not going to name them, but that doesn't mean that anything that you're seeing here is actually one of them.
See, but that's why we just are ignoring them now.
Yeah, we are now ignoring them. Let's see. We've still got a few minutes low. If we see any other cool questions, we'll answer them. And otherwise... we'll just talk amongst ourselves.
Are you back on your own time and stuff? Because you were so tired when you were here.
Yeah, I was, and that was, man. I don't travel the best. That was tough. Like, I tried to hide it, but it was kind of tough. I honestly, a couple of days in, I was good. As far as the time thing went. And, yeah, when I got back, it didn't really take me very long to get back to normal time. In fact, I just didn't get tired. Like, it was easier to transition back to Kansas than it was to transition to California. I like California time better. I wish it was 9 o'clock right now. But I guess then it just becomes relative, and it doesn't matter once you're no longer companions for any reason. Lo and Gabe were amazing. We had a whole lot of fun hanging out with them, and I can't wait to do it again. I hope at some point we can come back, or that you guys can come our way. Lo and Gabe are class acts, and they're the kind of people that you want to go have dinner with like every couple weeks. They're super fun.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
It's so dear.
Divot22 wants to know if I've ever tried a Red Bull. Yes, it was okay.
They taste like cough syrup.
Oh, you think?
To me.
I like Monster a lot more.
Same. But I don't really like energy drinks that much.
I'm not an energy drink guy, yeah. Where did I recently have a Monster? I feel like I had a Monster.
Disneyland.
Was it Disneyland?
You had one at Disneyland, yeah. Because they sell them at the snack carts.
You are right, because I was tired of Coke at that point, and like all you can get at Disneyland is Coke. Could not get Mountain Dew there. It was a problem. What are your thoughts on Todd McFarlane talking about making a new Spawn animated series? Like anything else with McFarlane adapting that character to any other media, I'll believe it when I see it. I heard about that the other day. I haven't read any articles on it, so I don't know what he's saying. So I don't have an informed opinion right now, but I'll believe it when I see it.
What's your favorite kind of off-brand soda?
Off-brand soda? Okay, so there's a I think this is Walmart. I forget. There's an off-brand Mountain Dew called I think it's, what is it? Mountain Lightning. That's okay. When I was in college and trying to save money, I bought that instead of Mountain Dew. It was just okay. Also, let's see, there's a Kroger brand of Dr. Pepper that was okay. That I think was it called Dr. K? Yeah, Dr. K. Yeah, that was all right. Do you drink off-brand soda, Lo? My
favorite is, and I know that this supermarket has different names depending on where you live. It's Vons or Safeway or maybe some other names. Their brand of like strawberry soda. I mean, not that I can even think of a mainstream strawberry soda, but
the closest is Shasta.
Yeah, that's a good soda.
Somebody mentioned Shasta. That's not really off-brand. I wouldn't count that as off-brand. I don't think, unless the only way that counts as off-brand is if that's like a box store or a grocery store that makes it. And I don't think that's the case with them.
It's not off-brand unless you haven't heard of it.
Yeah, well,
I'm so hipster.
Yeah, because I mean, like there are smaller companies of soda, but those aren't really off-brand sodas, right? Like that would be like saying that IDW is an off-brand comic company. Like that's not really how that works, right? like independent and off-brand, or I think when we say off-brand, we mean knockoff made by a grocery store. Like I'm pretty sure that's what that means.
Red Leader just said GNN idea. What counts as off-brand?
Yeah, I love that we're talking. Mass Sci-Fi fan, Cap, are you going to give Gotham the Spawnier treatment?
You don't hate yourself that much.
Now, that's not to say that we won't eventually have something else on Gotham or some other show that is episode to episode, but I can confirm most definitely that Gotham will not be a Spawnier type show if I were to ever do anything like that with it. I think that would, honestly, I think going episode to episode with that, I could see doing it in commentaries. Anything else I think would just explode my brain. I think that's going to be it for us tonight, folks. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Sure appreciate it. Lo and I will see you again next Monday night at 10 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Lo's time, because she gets to be at an earlier time zone than me. And we'll be talking more comics. Lo will take the 3 books that she'll have read and put them in some order and talk about them.
I'm sure I've missed at least one book that I just didn't see on Comixology or something like that. Like, I'm sure I'll have more than just 3. But
And I
yeah.
I probably won't have more than 5 or 6 or 7 next week. It'll be a lean week, but we'll meet anyway. We'll have a good time. And join us again on Sunday night. Hopefully Lo's able to make it for this one, for the second round of this year's multi-topic extravaganza. We had a really good time on Sunday. We'll also have a special guest that hasn't been with us in a while that'll be on that show with us as well, and other random fun things coming out for you this week. Thanks everybody for watching and for your wonderfully insightful questions. We'll see you again next week for New Comic Book Late Night. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm the Curious Love.
And we'll see you next time. Happy reading.